Today, class number 890, September the 18th, 2025, consciousness transformed. And then in parentheses, the power of affirmations. The foundation scriptures, Romans 12, verse 2, be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And then there's John 8:31. If you continue in my word, you are my disciples indeed, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. You notice he said, you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. A lot of people say the truth will make you free, and it won't. You have to know the truth. And how do you know that you know the truth unless you have continued in the word? And a lot of people have no understanding of what it means to be continued in the word. I had the definition of affirmation. I'm looking it up right now. And it means the action of process or process of affirming something to be affirmed. Emotional support or encouragement. But then it goes on to talk about affirmation is agreement. It is an act of agreeing, particularly something spiritual. In other words, I say something that is to affirm something. And somebody, I tell you what, you ever notice somebody makes a statement and they say affirmative, meaning I'm agreeing. Too often, we have thought that to affirm me, if I make this, I'm creating something. I'm making something happen. As I say this, I'm making something happen. That's not true. That's why a long time, I forget when it was I was still the pastor at Unity in Baltimore. And I was like, making these affirmations, this is incorrect. It's taking you away from where it is that you need to be and what have you. And a couple of the people got angry because they had been taught that to continue to make these spiritual statements means you're going to make something happen. You're going to create something and what have you. And I wasn't strong enough in the understanding. I knew it was the truth that you can't create anything other than an experience or a state of awareness. You can create that. A state of awareness so that you can agree with the truth. But I wasn't strong enough in it. And it angered people of saying, wow, this, he doesn't know what he's talking about, or he's taking us the wrong. Here was the big thing. This is not unity teaching. This is not unity teaching. But it was. It was unity teaching from the standpoint that Charles Fillmore wasn't trying to create anything. He was agreeing with that which is. And so I wanted to find that where it talks about the spiritual, it says an affirmation is a positive statement asserting a higher truth or belief as already existing, intended to influence one's subconscious. A positive statement asserting a higher truth or belief as already existing, intended to influence one's subconscious, change negative patterns, and align the individual with divine principles. It serves as a tool to confirm faith, express a positive self-concept, and facilitate spiritual and personal growth by establishing a desired reality in consciousness. You see what I mean? It does not mean I'm trying to create something. It means I am aligning myself with that which already is, already complete. And my subconscious, once I click and feel it, that means I believe. That's why I was so convicted. And so, I don't know, that's why I like that book, as I was telling y'all earlier, that Lord sent me. It was a book called How to Use the Principles of Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. And I just kept reading and reading. And finally it clicked. And at some point you understand that when you believe, then you go into a knowing. You can know something intellectually. You can know something, okay, 2 times 2 is 4. They told me that if you don't know how to get there, then you have another set of issues. However, if you understand, that's why Solomon said, in all that getting, get an understanding. So the minute you speak and feel, that feeling comes on you, that means you believe. And when you believe, it moves into what we call knowing. In fact, in Romans 5, I think it says, therefore, being justified by faith, we have peace with God, knowing that the trying of our faith works patience. You know good well, when you know, you already believe. The two make peace in the house. We're in agreement. So when we look at the affirmation from a spiritual perspective, knowing that it is an agreement of soul and spirit, the human spirit and soul, it means that my mind and my heart is in agreement. It's sort of like that that song Frankie Beverly had one time, A Happy Feeling. He says, I believe. He said, my mind and my heart, I believe in above. And these happy feelings, I don't really know whether he knew what he was saying or not or what have you, but I do know I know what he was saying. He said, my mind thinks. No, my mind doesn't think. I control what my mind thinks. I tell it what to think. I tell it. And so if I tell it what to think, then what happens is I receive a revelation about what I'm thinking. But if I just let at random, the mind that's just thinking on its own, that's carnal. And it can think good and it can think evil. But the mind of Christ cannot think evil. And so I, with the mind of Christ, direct my thoughts. Now, I'm going to show you one of the greatest examples of affirmations that has ever been spoken. And that is the Lord's Prayer. If you think about what Jesus was saying, a prayer is nothing but affirmation. When Jesus said, he was there and they came to him and they said, teach us to pray. I think that's the way it's written in Luke 12. No, Luke 11. I'm sorry. It's Luke 11. And they said, teach us to pray. And remember, Jesus has already told them, don't pray like the pagans, making all these statements, saying all this stuff all out in front of people so that they can be seen. He said, but pray like this. And he goes, our Father, which is, we've broken down a lot of times, Abba, Daddy, Papa, our Father, Abba. who is everywhere. That is who art in heaven, who is everywhere. Hallowed be thy name. Your name is set apart for a specific purpose. Now, when Jesus said, pray in my name, he went, pray like me. Pray in this manner. That's why I love the Aramaic so much. I don't need to hear what Jesus said translated into Greek and then into English. I don't need all that. I need to know the man was from northern Galilee. He spoke Eastern Aramaic. And the man, two men that I trust as far as their studies are concerned, Dr. George Lambda and Dr. Rocco Errico, they translated the Aramaic into English. And I trust it because it feels good. Hallowed be thy name. Your name is set apart for a specific purpose. Your nature. Pray the way I did. How is that? I know it's already done. Then it says, come now thy kingdom. Well, the word kingdom, as we said, is Malkutha, wise counsel. I need your counsel. But if you lock that with Psalm 32 and 8, it says, I've already made you to understand, and I've led you in the way that you ought to take, and I will follow you with my eye. In other words, I'm going to make sure that it's done, that you understand. That's what I'm doing. I'm not trying to do anything for you. I am allowing you to affirm that you're in agreement with this and it is done. So you don't have to be out here trying to make something happen. Come now your kingdom. Then it says, thy will be done. And we do this a million times because my aunt, who was an English teacher, I told y'all this a million times, she used to say, to conjugate the verb to be is I am, you are, he, she, are, it is. So this prayer is an it. The will of God is an it. That means it is done. Whatever God wishes is done already. That's why we lock back so much on Ecclesiastes 3. That which God has done is done forever. Nothing can be added to it. Nothing can be taken away. That which has been is now, and that which is to be has already been. The past, the present, and the future are all one thing now. Then it says, give us bread from day to day. Oh, wait a minute. Now you're asking me to give you something? No. Give us bread from day to day. In other words, your daily bread is what you eat. Now, they did have a physical bread that was a big round, looked like a flatbread, a tortilla, or what have you. But do you think that's all he was asking them? God, give us this bread every day. Bread is in a lot of different kinds of ways. Our daily bread. Jesus said, I am the bread of life. What? Yeah, what bread are you eating? The revelation of the truth. And forgive us our offenses as we forgive those who have offended us. In other words, I need to stop thinking about somebody who I think hurt me as opposed to thinking about what God is. I need to be thinking about what God is. And that is my forgiveness. I'm done. Let us not enter into the temptation to do what? To think evil. Because all this whole thing is about mine. Yours is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Son, thou art ever with me, and all that is mine is thine. Okay, well, what do you have, Father? All I have is what? God says, all I got is something. All I got is the kingdom. I don't have anything else. What blessed me to know him one day was Joel Goldsmith said, if you had God, what else would you be trying to get? Because God is going to appear as everything that is necessary in your practical experience. I tricked y'all. Y'all thought I was going to say moral or human experience. No, your practical experience, your day-to-day experience. It's very practical, but it's already worked out. You have to approach it from it already being worked out. Deliver us from error. Deliver us from thinking that we are anything other than who you are, Father, who you are, Daddy. You know what I'm saying? When I was a little guy, I wanted to be a grown man. I wanted to be my daddy. Because I was like 3 years old or what have you, and it's like, these big people are walking around. Well, now I want to be God. God is all. So I might as well, if that's what I be, I am. I am that I am. Moses was on the backside of the desert. It does not say, I am that I am. In Aramaic, it says, I am the living God. That means you are aware that you are aware. You are the consciousness. You are the Christ consciousness. Now, notice that that prayer, he didn't ask for anything from a material standpoint. Did you notice that? He made statements that were in agreement with what God is. That's all he did. That was his prayer. Even when he got to Lazarus' tomb, and he said, Father, thank you. I know that you hear me. Why did he say that? I know that you hear me. You always hear me. Why? Because over in 1 John, it says, when you pray according to his will, he hears you. He hears you. And if he hears you, you have the petitions that are desired of him. You already have them. But it's the aligning yourself in agreement with the fact that I already have the substance of everything that I expect. I'm assured of it. When I'm confident like that, I think it's 2 Chronicles. If my people who are called by my name, what? Called by what? My people are set apart for a specific purpose. Who are called by my name, if they humble themselves and pray, seek my face, change from their wicked way. What? The thoughts. I will hear. All you're doing is realizing that God has heard you already. You don't have to get on your knees and start begging God for anything because God has heard. God knows. God is your mind. That's consciousness. And when you refuse to think in terms of good and evil, then you have done what David did. You have slayed Goliath. Because sometimes this so-called mortal, carnal man is a giant. I talked to a lady yesterday, and she said, I started to feel a little sick like. I don't know. I'm starting to feel bad because, remember I had a lot of people over the house, and you were there. I said, yeah, I came to dinner. That was one of those days where it was one of Michael's miracles, right? Michael said, oh, no, I forgot to take something out for dinner. Why? Because I'm tired of that. I'm tired of it, man. I mean, it's like, I forgot. And so I'm like, I am not standing up. I don't know. I'll go out and buy something. I'm just going to go out and get something and I'll eat. And there ain't going to be no McDonald's or none of that kind of stuff. Or, as Jamal says, what's his name? Mac Chipotle. McDonald's on Chipotle. So no, it ain't gonna be none of that. So I'm sitting here and I'm getting ready. I don't know what I was thinking. And she called and said, we had all met at a funeral on Friday. She said, I got everybody coming over for dinner, and you come on over because our neighbor passed, and we all went to the funeral. And she said, I got all these people coming over for dinner, the family, and we consider you family, so I know you and Kenny were real close, so come on over. I said, okay. I'm like, wow, my dinner was what? Thou prepares a table before me. So I showed up and ate dinner. We had a ball, and then we all left, and he said, I had all these people over, and you know how kids are. They probably been, go to school, they're interacting with all kinds of other kids, and they got germs. And I'm like, and she said, I'm starting to feel like I'm coming down with something and this. And that's what she was saying. And I said to her, you know what? I just feel like you need to be feeling like God feels right now. I ain't going to no deep discussions, and I ain't going to none of that kind of stuff. I said, you just need to feel like, I just feel like you feel all right. There ain't no other way. I said, you just need to feel like God. And so then I talked to her this morning. Oh, I'm sorry. She added one thing. I think I might take a COVID test. I said, for what? COVID? Let that go. And so she said, okay. I talked to her this morning. I feel a lot better. I said, I know. I felt better about you last night. We ain't no time to be fooling around with no COVID and all this kind of stuff. Does God have it? Does God catch a cold? Your inner enlightened state of consciousness is God. And she was like, I know. I just need to stay with it. I said, yeah, you do. And we moved on. So now I realize that what you say has to be in agreement with what God is. He didn't ask for anything practical. He didn't ask for material stuff. He said, I'm in agreement with the nature of what God is, and I am that same nature, and that's my name. I'm set apart for a specific purpose, and that is to express what I am. That's it. There is nothing else. So in Isaiah 55, what is it, 8 through 11? Well, the gist of it is, I'm not going to read all of it, but the gist of it is, your thoughts are not my thoughts, and your ways are not my ways. But just as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways and my thoughts higher than yours. Then he says, the word that goes forth out of my mouth, that's your mouth. Ain't no other mouth. The words that go forth out of your mouth will not return void. Why? Why won't they return void? In Jeremiah 29 and 11 through 13, what does he say? I know the thoughts that I think about you. Now, here's another one of those things where, again, I prefer the Aramaic. I want to know what was said in Hebrew, in Aramaic. I don't need to know Greek. The Greek says, I know my plans. What? A plan is something that you got to do what? Don't you got to work it out if you make out a plan for something? I know my thoughts. God is saying, I know my thoughts towards you. Why? Because the thoughts are already worked out. Man makes his plans. God directs his steps. Why? Because God says, I've thought it through already. So my thoughts towards you, and they are for what? For you to get to what? A good hope. A good hope. What is hope? Hope is expectancy. That means I am assured of that which I expect. For that substance, that expectation, that spirit, faith, it was the substance of those things that are in existence right now. That's the definition of faith. And the evidence of that which is invisible. So now, we're looking at Isaiah 55. We're looking at Jeremiah 29 and 11. And we know good and well that God has already thought it through. And it's already done. And we're accepting of that. The seed, the word, does not return void. It can't. It has an image inside of it. So, except the seed fall into the ground and die. What was that, John 12? What is the seed? The word of God. The word of God is the seed that is planted in the soil. What soil? The subconscious. Mind is made up of conscious and subconscious, male and female, thought and feeling. So what goes in comes out if it is felt to be real. If the word that I speak and the meditations of my heart are acceptable in thy sight, O God, my Redeemer, then that means that's coming back. The image of all of that. Success. If the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart are not acceptable in the sight of God, and in other, what that means by not in agreement, they're still going to come back. I just took thought, I said the wrong stuff, I thought the wrong stuff, I let fear drop in there. I'm always planting something in my subconscious. I can't go to a God and go fix this because I did it. I got to fix it. And how do I fix it? Oh, Father, I'm sorry. I had no business taking that thought. I had no business dropping that down. I had no business looking at TV and having an opinion about what is going on in the world. None. I really don't. Why? Because Kenny and I have been talking about this all week. There's only one life. That life is the only life. Then as I go back, every now and then I go, well, plus, I'm not crazy. I got an orange marker. In fact, I got 100 orange markers because the guy gave them to me. I got 50 yellow ones because he gave them to me. And so I go and I mark. When Dr. Murphy, he has one of these statements that he has done in there that he helped people with. He wasn't trying to create a healing. He knew they were already healed. He just told them something to say to get in agreement. They said it 20 times. It took that long to get into agreement. Some things I've only said once. You guys remember. You know, I'm not bragging, and I ain't trying to keep bringing up the same thing, but you remember. I think I'll get me some new tennis shoes. Bing. I think I'm going to do this. Bing. I think I'm going to get me some new, I need some plastic hangers. Bam. I think, bam. I was convicted about the fact that I was going to do it. But stuff that I didn't know how I was going to do, I might say it, but it's still hanging out there. It's already done. It just does not come through as a manifestation because I'm sitting around wondering how it's going to happen. So now, as I know that conscious mind is the male, and I know that subconscious, which really is the heart, the core of my being, I know now that those two, as when Greg Braden says they make peace in the house, they're in agreement with God, I feel it, boom, it just opens up the treasure. When he says lay up treasure where moth cannot get in, where they can't destroy it, that he's meaning that great feeling of the word fulfilled already. That's what Neville calls living in the end. That's what he calls that. Assuming that the end is already done. Judge Thomas Trowett, having seen and felt the end, one wills the means to the end. What do you mean? This is done. You just got to feel that. If you don't feel it, you'll be walking around making some affirmations, trying to make something get done. But you got to know it's already done. You started out with it done. Before the foundations of the world, you were in him. Before Abraham was, I am. You don't understand that. And when you feel like you is, when you feel like I am, that means you have accepted the truth. You are free, and you are free to understand that, you know, God is all there is. Now, remember now, when you drop in that seed, what happens? Some bear fruit. Well, you got to get past what? The rocky soil. You got to get past the stiff soil, the thorns and the thistles that choke it out, and the word works its way into the subconscious, the good. But you ever notice the bad stuff that you think and what have is immediate? You know, quite a few, I'm quite sure quite a few of you on here still drive. You ever seen cars zipping in and out in front of people, riding all on the tail end of your car? Well, that's stopping with me. They're stopping. Why? Because I'm through telling myself that why these guys got to be all, you know, and Jamal is sitting there looking at me because I know he's looking because he's glad it's not him having to drive. But I'm looking at all these people all up on the back end, on the, you know, pop from one lane all the way over, crossing, passing people on the shoulder. You see all that and you'll say, you know what? I'm tired of having thoughts about this. I'm letting it go. I'm at peace. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. That's a great. Oh, and I'm sitting out here doing what? You know, the presence goes before me to make the crooked places straight. You feel that. You feel that. So now you're breaking through the fallow ground. You breaking through that toughness. You're getting through to the soul that says, what did Mary say? My soul magnifies the Lord. What did she mean by that? She meant my soul is manifesting the good that I am in agreement with. Thou restorest my soul. That's in the 23rd Psalm. Restored it to what? To being in charge and not taking direction from who? From this carnal man. The man came to Jesus and said, I too am a man under authority. I say to this one to go and he goes. Say to this one he comes. He said, but you have the words what? Of eternal life. Speak the word only and my servant is going to get up. Actually in Aramaic is my son. He's going to be healed. That's why Jesus knew that if he made a statement, it had happened already. Say that again. If he made a statement, it happened already. Think about the fig tree. No man eat fruit from you from this day forward. Why? Because it was time for the figs to be on there and they were all gone. It didn't bear any fruit. It wasn't bringing forth fruit. Well, there's no need for you to be here. Bye. Boom. Done. They coming back from Jerusalem. Master, the fig tree, it's all withered and gone. He said, and I'm telling you that if you say to the mountain, be thou removed, but before that, you got to do what? Have faith in God. Let your assurance be that your inner enlightened state of consciousness is aware that things already are. And you just, as a practical being, have to be in agreement with it. So now what happens? You stayed with it, you were patient, and what happened? Some 30-fold, some 60-fold, some 100-fold. That's the fruit that's coming up out of the subconscious. What is 30-fold? Belief. What is 60-fold? The ear corn. What's 100-fold? The full grain in the ear. The whole ear corn complete. That's what you're doing. You're bringing forth the completeness that already exists. Because when you put the seed in the ground, you know what you were looking for. You're looking for what the picture of what already is. Okay, so the affirmation empowers the thought spoken, which is the seed, to express its growth, its maturation through feeling. The affirmation it creates like a vacuum, an experience. That's what I call it, a vacuum. Nature abhors a vacuum. It rushes to fill it in. So you create this experience and you receive the internal and the external fulfillment. But it starts within. It's got to start in here first. When you feel it, that's why I had you guys doing the Greg Braden dance, touching the sternum, saying anything you want to say. I like to say the 7 statements of Jesus. But this morning I was sitting there and I'm taking the deep breath in and I'm exhaling and I'm saying stuff like love. God's love floods my soul. Why? Because it does. God is love. In me, through me, and with everyone else. Why? Because that's what it is. Love is. I can't change it. I'm going to give you guys an example. On the morning of, let's see. Oh, it was today's the 18th, right? 17th. Yesterday, I received this thought. I was just laying there being real quiet, and I was thinking about God and the last couple of days, how smoothly they have gone, how things have just been very peaceful. And I'm sitting there thinking that, and this thought just out of nowhere, not out of nowhere because it came from within me, but this thought says, my God is the fulfillment of every apparent need. Meditating this thought generated the necessary feeling to experience the still small voice and its practical manifestation. You're not looking for an external voice. You're looking for this voice, which is your thought. And you receive it from divine mind. You, the Christ. You have divine mind. You have the mind of Christ. And so what happens is you are thinking, as David said, I am thinking thy thoughts after thee. I'm thinking the way God thinks. Well, of course, what you hear is going to be a revelation. I could realize, you know what? God is the fulfillment. Not God is fulfilling. God is the fulfillment of all my necessities, which I really don't have since it's already done. I'm in agreement with that. Divine mind, Christ. This is what? Consciousness transformed. I used to think God was going to do something. Then I got into, that was consciousness rising. Then I got into consciousness in transition. What does that mean? I'm moving up in consciousness to I'm transitioning to something. What is that I'm transitioning into? Paul says we die daily. What am I dying to? The oldness, the looking for God to do something. I'm transforming into what? A renewed mind. What is that? Well, the Christ mind doesn't need to be renewed, so what's going on? The way I think from a practical standpoint is getting in line with the way I think from a divine standpoint. The two are one, making peace in the house. My soul is starting to magnify the law. What law? The law of the Spirit of Christ. The law of the Spirit of God in Christ Jesus has made me free from the law of sin and death. That means receiving instead of taking thought. Receiving instead of taking thought. I want to give you another example. Greg Braden, he was talking about one time in New Mexico. They had a drought and it had gone on for, an unfathomable amount of time. Plants dying, all kinds of, animals dying. They were, lost like you wouldn't believe. And he said that he had a friend who was Native American. And he called him one day. And Greg said, yeah, what's up? And he said, I want to meet together and pray about this this drought, the situation we got. And Greg said, okay, yeah. He said, let's do something. So they went out into the woods. And he said he saw the guy take his shoes off. So Greg said he took his shoes off too. And said the guy got quiet. And he started to say a couple of things and he chanted some stuff and made some statements or what have you. And Greg looked at him and said, you didn't ever pray for rain. And he said, the guy looked at him and said, if I had prayed for, I want you to hear that, if I had prayed for rain, we wouldn't get it because I would be saying rain is not here. Y'all with me? I am saying rain is not here. I am out of agreement. I am out of alignment with what God is. Why? Because all things are already here. There's nothing to create. He said, so now as I realize that everything already is here, everything already is, I don't need to ask God for something. I need to align myself with the fact that it is, and I need to feel it. He said, well, okay. And then the guy went on to say, I took my shoes off because I stood here and I'm feeling what it feels like. This dirt to be mud on my feet. You guys ever felt mud on your feet? Barefoot? I have. I know what it feels like. Standing out there in the rain, mud, or I remember growing up in West Virginia, there was a smell that came with that rain. I smell it. I know. It's so ingrained in me. Can you just feel what it feels like for rain to be dropping down on your head, rain to be dropping on your legs, on your hand? You walk out. Yesterday we walked out and I felt the rain blowing in the air. I can feel that right now. I know exactly what it feels like. I know what it feels like to be out. I know what it feels like to be in a downpour, to get totally wet from it. I know what it feels like to get in a pool and be swimming. I can feel it. And so therefore, that's what he said. I felt the mud. I smelled the smells that come along with the rain. I could see the leaves all completely wet and all that. He said, when they finished, he said, let's go to lunch. So they went in to go to lunch, and they left the mountain, went to lunch. While they were sitting at the table, it started thundering. It got black outside, and the rain poured in. Greg said he was just complete. He said, I've lived my life like this from now on because I know that everything already is. That's the conviction. That is the consciousness which is transformed. Let's see. We had a class last Thursday. I think it was on Friday. I think I told you guys this, or maybe I didn't. But this guy from London calls me and says, I want to do no, it was before last Thursday. He said, I want to do a deal with you. I want to take one of your songs, Spread Love, and include it in a compilation album over here in London. And I want to send you a contract to do that deal. And I said, okay. You know, he hit me on Messenger. First, he asked to be my friend. Then I noticed he was friends with some people that I'm friends with in London. So I said, okay, Facebook. Then he gets back and wants to send me a contract to include the song. I said, okay, let's just, send me the deal and what have you. He hits me back and says, I'm getting married tomorrow. So would it be all right if I send you the contract on Monday? I went, hey man, go get married. What are you talking about? You talking about some record deals and you get ready to make a huge change in your life. So he got married. Then he got back somewhere this week, Monday or Tuesday. He said, I'm back now from my honeymoon. And he said, it was wonderful. And then he said, I'm going to get the contract in the mail right to you. Then he gets ready to send me the contract. Then he hits me back. Oh, I'm going to have to wait till tomorrow. I got to rush home to my wife. I said, really? I'm like, dude, you just got married, man. I'm going to be here. I ain't going nowhere. Go home to your wife. Then he came back the next day and he said, okay, everything is running well now. He said, and I talked to my boss. And he's like, okay, and let's just, go on down the road. And I'll ask him, is he interested in us reissuing his album all over again? And behind it came this: my music and my ministry success is worldwide. And I said, wait a minute, where did I hear this before? And it was like, last week when you were reading that book that Lord sent you again, you made a statement and you felt it. My music and my ministry is successful worldwide. What did I do? I got in agreement with what already is. I ain't trying to ask God that's separate from me to make me successful worldwide. I'm in agreement with God that says, I am already successful because God is everywhere. And all I'm doing is demonstrating what God is. That's it. And the way I demonstrate what God is, I put the seed in my soul, in my subconscious, and I feel it, and I let it express. I ain't got nothing to do with trying to make I recognize. I recognize what has already happened. That's faith. Faith is recognition. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to embark on this, which I suggest very heavily that you do, you can write down what you affirm. You can say what you affirm. If you write it down, you'll be thinking about it. I know that was how I got out of college. I studied by writing the answer on a piece of paper and thinking about it. And then when I needed it, it would come back. But I was a little, I don't know, too dumb to understand what was going on back then. But that was the principle. And I was practicing the principle and didn't know it. If you are writing it down, you are thinking about it. And if you are thinking about it, you are depositing it as a reality. Because you know damn well it's true. If they're going to give you a test on it and you got to bring it back, it's true. But this is the thing that you have to know. Make sure that your affirmation, your statement, is in alignment with God's will, God's word, God's purpose. And you know what that is. You know damn well that God does not want you to be sick. God does not want you to be broke or poor. There's no such thing as that. So really, God doesn't want you trying to compete with anybody to get the world's goods. No such thing. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. Son, thou art ever with me. No gender. All that is mine is yours. All things are already yours. Why? Because there's substance. Everything is substance. So when you speak it and you think it and you feel it, that means it's knocking at the door, looking to be expressed. In other words, it's saying, let me out of here. let me out. Let me out. Now, Jesus Christ is the power of affirmation. That came to me last night. Jesus Christ is the power of affirmation. I, set before me. See, this is my affirmation. Set before me an open door that no man can close. All things are mine now. Let's look at Philippians. Oh, I know what it is. Philippians 1, verse 6. You know what it says? He who has begun good work within you will perform it until the day of Christ Jesus. What? Yeah. He. Who is he? The I am. Me. One with God. He. Christ. God. Everywhere. Has already begun a work. A good work within me. He will perform it. No gender. Let's not get caught up in that. It is performed by enlightened state of consciousness. Does that make it feel any better? It is performed by a enlightened state of consciousness until the day of Christ. What is the day of Christ? The day you are enlightened into understanding what you just did. You understand it. It's come forth. The perfection is completion. It is done. You understand how it is done because it is who you are. But you must have your own revelation about this stuff. You can't live based on what Goldsmith said. You can't live based on what any of the book writers, Walter Lanyon, Lillian DeWaters, Neville. You can't live on what they did. You have to have your own revelation. That means you have to speak, as Kenny's grandson Malachi used to say, you have to speak to yourself inside your brain. And when you realize that, when you recognize all is already, amen, that word means hemanutha. That is the word in Aramaic. It means it is firm. The word prayer, slaughter, it means to set a trap. You have already done this, and you might as well experience it. Amen. And so it is.